Good morning, everyone. Like there's a few of you already here. I appreciate that. Hello, Thwan. It's been a long time, my friend. What are you up to this morning? Glad that you were able to join us. Hello, Mark. Glad to see you as well after interacting a time or two this last few weeks over on the DependableFlame.com Facebook group. And hello to you as well, Boo Rock Beer. Glad that you are with us this morning. Glad to talk about anything that you guys want to discuss. I have a cup of heavily creamed decaf here with me. Sweetened with my favorite erythritol sweetener. Got some Wicks that you probably saw the video for earlier in the week. Been moving out of the place over in Mesta Park and was shredding my mail over there when I realized that I had those sitting in an envelope. I believe the date on the envelope for when they were mailed was sometime December of last year. So I've had those sitting over there for 8 months or so and didn't even realize it. Still have fuel in our custom T-Man Tribute Zippo that ZF77 Outdoors sent via Kismet's Corner last week. Has a marijuana motif as well as the image of Comrade T-Man, our late friend who made lighter videos and all kinds of different videos, but I would say his most prominent type of video that he made were cigarette reviews. Anyway, we can talk about that. We can talk about any of the lighters that you see out here. Or we can talk about something completely different if you guys want to steer the conversation in that direction. I hope that the microphone is working correctly. I hope everybody can hear me. It's been many months since we have conversed, Thwan. I'm glad that you're able to join us this morning. And I know that I've been somewhat sporadic. Excuse me. Thank you, Burak. I appreciate that. You as well, Mark. Let me know that the sound is good. I know I've been somewhat sporadic. And even this summer been very sporadic with the live streams as well. And even more so over the last few weeks since I've been moving out of the place over in Mesta Park and cramming everything into the apartment here in Deep Deuce of Oklahoma City near Bricktown. Hello, Naphtha. Glad that you have joined us. Glad to see you. Hope everything is going well in Tulsa. Hope you haven't burned up yet. I see that the superintendent of schools, the state superintendent of schools, is still causing trouble with the local schools up there in Tulsa. It's about all we see in the news every day up here right now. He seems more keen to stir people up politically than to do his job as the superintendent of schools. What's the name you're talking about, Mark? Did I mention a name, or are you talking about a name here in the chat? Also, be sure to let me know what you guys are drinking. If you're having a cup of coffee or a smoke or whatever you're doing. Naphtha Flame, yeah, that is a good one. Naphtha has been one of our most consistent and loyal contributors here on the live stream. Which I'm not sure. I was looking back at some of those the other day. I still think, I don't think it's been a year now since we did our first live stream. Let me go over and check that. Yeah, 10 months ago was our first live stream. First live stream that we did was it wasn't this newer style Ronson. It was, I believe it was a Ronson Standard, and it was the older style fitment. When I say older style, I'm not talking about the really old, more skeletonized, but just the kind that you normally think of, rather than this kind of streamlined mechanism that they came out with. I think the Essex was the first one. Kind of a different, it all functions and works the same, but it looks different because the thumb lever sits lower than the snuffer. But anyway, the first live stream was just like a 20-minute quick hit where we demonstrated how to disassemble and reassemble the Ronson mechanism. Mark says he's having his first dip of Cope. I take it that's Copenhagen. Talked a lot on here about how I don't smoke tobacco, but I certainly did smoke tobacco cigarettes for a long time, and I also dipped for a long time. Did both of them simultaneously for several years. Started dipping to try to quit smoking, and then ended up doing both. And dipping was, without question, the hardest to quit, way harder than quitting smoking. That was I don't know, it's hard to, just like smoking, there's nasty elements to it. But the appeal or draw of it, it's hard to explain, but I nearly had a nervous breakdown or two trying to quit dipping, or thought I would. And by God's grace, when I finally did quit it, I quit and never looked back. I don't regret it, but I've certainly enjoyed a pinch between the cheek and gums a pinch between the cheek and gums from time to time. Not anymore, though. I don't know if this lighter, still got a little bit of fuel. You haven't seen the video for this lighter yet. I believe it's set to come out this coming Tuesday. A little bit low on fuel, which you wouldn't expect it to last very long, and I filled it up probably Monday, I think was when I made that video. Spark's really good though, seems to function well. Toying with the idea of replacing the wick just for fun, just because it looks like it'd be such a challenge. Got this tiny little fill screw, so you got this tiny little hole that you're going to have to pull all that wadding out of and then stuff it back in. So we'll see. Was also my first attempt at epoxying these embellishments back onto a lighter. I've had some flat ad lighters from time to time that use these same kind of brass, little thin brass sheets that are, I believe it's enameled. And they're kind of bent up and beat up. I straightened them out as best I could and epoxied them back on. Turned out okay. Like I said, you'll see more of that when the video comes out this coming Tuesday. You're going to have to enlighten me about your favorite clove brand being banned. Was it because of where the tobacco was coming from? Why did they outlaw them, Mark? I started smoking cigarettes when I was 18 years old, the summer after I graduated high school, because it seemed cool. Seemed like the thing to do. And I got to admit, I pretty much got over that. The appeal of it didn't linger near as long as the appeal for the snuff. I dipped for a long time. And especially when my drinking was so bad and my throat got so bad that, and irritated from the alcohol, the dipping just made that so many times worse. So you think that Copenhagen is the meanest stuff? I dipped Copenhagen fine cut. I dipped Copenhagen long cut at one point. I dipped Skoal, a few different varieties of that. I dipped, toward the end it was a couple other brands because Copenhagen had gotten so expensive. I'm trying to remember now what those brands were. It was always some of the cheaper brands. Dipping the fine cut of those brands was more like the long cut of Copenhagen, and it would stay packed a little bit better in your lip. Copenhagen fine cut can get loose in your mouth pretty quick. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't aware of anything being banned, any type of cigarette being banned that recently. I know that, what was it, back in the late 2000s, maybe the early 2000s, when the cigarette advertisement restrictions came into place, and that's why you don't see Zippos anymore that are actually, like, this is a Marlboro Reward Zippo, but there's no Marlboro branding or advertisement of any kind. So they figured out a way to get around some of that to where they can still, do promotions, but not in the same way. That's one reason that I think that that's one of the segments of the vintage lighter market. And it's hard to even call some of that stuff vintage because it's not quite that old yet. But the lighter market and the things that will continue to go up in value over time are the cigarette advertising, because they're not making it anymore, at least here in the States. Yeah, I've swallowed plenty of snuff myself. I've accidentally drank my own spit, thinking I was picking up my water bottle. I've done that on more than one occasion. That's not quite as bad though. I had a buddy who we were all getting together one night after years of not seeing each other. I mean, like the first time after I graduated high school in 1989, and the first big gathering of my friends that came about was in the early 2000s, I think is right. Maybe around 2002, 2003. And on the way there, one of my buddy's wife picked up his bottle thinking it was water and drank some of his spit. I think my wife would have killed me. Hello, Professor. Glad that you have joined us today. Have you been busy etching any more Zippos lately? The one that you showed off in that video turned out real good. Looked real nice. And I remember you talking about it taking a long time, but specifically, do you remember how many hours of work that was? Yeah, the Camel Joe, Tuxedo Joe, all those are really cool, Mark. I like the Camel advertising. I like the Marlboro advertising. Some of it's kind of strange, like the compass and the 8 ball, and I kind of like the straightforward stuff. With the Camel Joe, you knew what that character belonged to. Of course, I guess that was kind of part of the problem. Maybe that's why Camel hasn't brought back any kind of rewards like Marlboro has. Marlboro had the Marlboro Man, but at least that was a man, where the Camel was kind of a cartoonized version of a camel that might appeal to children. I think may have been part of the problem, or at least part of the objection. Yeah, really, I tried to, maybe it was a live stream. I should go back and look. I don't know if ZF77 has actually put out any videos of him etching those Zippos or not. But I'm really curious about the process after, about the time that you released that video of the one that you etched was around the same time that Zippo Lion's Den was showing off his Comrade T-Man tribute Zippo. And I don't know. The result is, an aesthetically pleasing, appealing, it seems it's not like the chrome that's remaining looks like it's ready to peel off anytime soon or anything like that. So I'm kind of curious about the whole process. So yeah, if you publish that video, I'll definitely be watching. As I mentioned earlier, I've been moving everything from Mesta Park over here to Deep Deuce. I will definitely be done with that one way or the other by this coming Thursday, because that's the last day. That's when I have to be out. And I've sold a bunch of stuff on Facebook Market that I didn't have room for. I sold my rotating Zippo display. That was one of the first things that sold. But I pretty much got everything of real importance moved, and now it's just some other things that I gotta get out of there and get somewhere. Still trying to sell some stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace is a trip. The number of times that people have attempted to scam me right off the bat is kind of amazing. But for the most part, it's been a good experience. You know, a lot of big stuff. Sold a couch, a printer. Some of the stuff, you know, I could have shipped, but it would have been kind of expensive to mail. But, you know, like the couch, that's just prohibitive how much it would have cost to ship it. So really no choice but just to go local. Same way with a bunch of folding tables and stuff like that. That's kind of the last stuff I'm trying to get rid of now. So the professor says etching it alone took like maybe 4 or 5 hours. Say an hour for getting the designs for the image ready and maybe less than 30 minutes for the cleanup and polish. Interesting. Yeah, that's obviously a lot of work, and I'll be interested to see how you edit that, how you show that off if you're able to get that video out. Yeah, this one, Mark, the rotating display that I had was one that I had picked up from Ted Ballard up at the National Lighter Museum in Guthrie, Oklahoma last year. At the same time that I bought the 2 National Lighter Museum Zippos that are part of my personal collection. And it wasn't lighted or motorized or anything like that, but it was cool. And I would have loved to have had a place to set it up over here, but space is a little limited. And I kind of have built, well, before I moved into the place over there at Mesta Park, I kind of built everything to where I had the ability to fold up everything and go at any given time. So, like the backdrop that you're seeing right now, I've just adjusted to use here on the bar top here in the apartment. And I moved a few other things. We'll see what kind of other sets I might be able to come up with over here. I've disassembled the 2 smoking stands with the slag glass and electric lighters, and I'll be moving them. But whether or not I'll be able to get them set up over here anytime soon is another story. But yeah, I would love to have one of those big lit rotating motorized displays. Has a cabinet for storage underneath them, but those are a lot more expensive. That one that I had, I paid Ted $50 for it, and he had, I don't know, a dozen of them or so up there at the time, and I believe that's what I sold it for, was $50. What kind of school are you starting, Professor? Are you in college? Taking college courses? Or like Votech? Or are you talking about, or are you a teacher? School's already been in session around here now for, I think they started August 9th or 10th. So a couple weeks they've already been going back, which still seems really early to me. When I was in school, we didn't start until Thursday before Labor Day, and that was that way, I believe, for the entire 13 years that I was in school. Oh, very cool. Very cool. Wildlife conservation. That's a very interesting thing to be taking a college program studying in. So you got hopes of being a game warden? That's kind of one of my dream jobs there. course, depending on where you're working at and where you're doing it, a lot of times it's more related to law enforcement. It's more like being a cop than actually working in the wild. But, there's a little bit of both, I'm sure. But yeah, game warden, that'd be an interesting vocation. I discovered a few lighters like this one, this round Vulcan made in Japan. Discovered when I was going through some stuff moving out of the place in Mesta Park. And there were some others too that you may or may not see videos depending on whether or not I can get them repaired properly. I had another Japanese made automatic lighter, what you would call a ladies lighter, that I need to see about cutting a new spring for, because the flint spring got all twisted up in it, and I didn't realize it until I had sat down to make the video. That's been over a week now, and I'm not even sure now what I've done with that lighter. There are a few others too, and hopefully soon I'll be able to be buying a little bit more, have more work to do, more work to demonstrate, and more lighters to show off. I don't know how many of you guys may have seen the short that I published earlier in the week of the guys outside with the jackhammer, but I noticed they've got the big compressor out there again today behind their truck. So if you hear the jackhammer, or that same day that they had the jackhammer, they were also out there sawing concrete. One of the cable companies apparently, I don't know if there's a problem with their line. They'd painted the concrete out there 2 or 3 times over the last few months, locating the lines and marking where the lines were. They finally got around this week to digging it all up. That's been a real nuisance. I grew up, for the most part, what most people around here think about as in the country, is, country kind of living, when you're at least close to the city. So it's been a little bit of a challenge for me trying to record videos both here and in Mesta Park, because there are so often distractions, noisy distractions like leaf blowers and mowers and all that kind of stuff. But this jackhammers, it definitely is a commotion when they're out there. Well, and the sawing too. The saw, sending dust all over everything around here. Also, that people can have their cable TV and internet, I guess. Well, I would think that in the state of Montana, there would be just about as much opportunity as for a job in that field as anywhere else. There's a lot of game wardens in Oklahoma. And Oklahoma's not anywhere near the biggest state. Of course, we've got a lot of hunting land, public and otherwise, leased land, private land, but a good amount of public hunting land in Oklahoma as well. I haven't talked a lot about that here. Obviously, I made no videos or anything like that on it, but we probably talked about it once or twice on a live stream. But I grew up hunting, deer hunting, rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting here in the state of Oklahoma. And there just weren't that many deer when I was young. It was very rare. There were, we'd have a camp of 20 to 30 men every year, and if there was a deer killed, it was an occasion. But when I got back into it as an adult, around the year 2000, it's a completely different story. The deer population has been managed and rebounded to the degree that there are great opportunities to harvest deer here in Oklahoma. As a matter of fact, I believe the limit is now, when you consider the doe-only season at the end of the year, only one buck, I think. It's a possibility. I think they took that down a few years ago. I think it was two. Now it's just one buck. But you can kill a total of 7 deer. And then there are even other opportunities because of the special hunts that you can be drawn out for. So deer hunting in Oklahoma is really good and pretty popular pastime. Marlin Perkins. Mark, is that was he the one that was on Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom? That name sounds really familiar. And I think about that show all the time. We used to have a guy around here, oh man, what was that guy's name? We had a guy around here named Don Wallace when I was growing up. And I've even said from time to time that was my aim, was to be the Don Wallace of cigarette lighters. Okay, so that was Marlin Perkins, yeah. Yeah, Steve Irwin, I am familiar. As a matter of fact, my son-in-law just brought up last week something about his son, I guess following in his footsteps. Said he looks just like him. And I know his daughter too. It's been a while, but I've seen her in, I don't know, talk shows or interviews. She's basically doing the same kind of work. So you're saying that Marlin Perkins died from getting bit by a snake? I didn't know that. Steve Irwin died from was it a stingray? And, I'm not real that familiar with Jacques Cousteau. I believe most of that was in the sea. At least that sounds right. I'm just kind of... I'm just familiar with him kind of on a cursory nature. But yeah, that's a worthwhile vocation for sure, Professor. Hello, Dylan. Glad that you have joined us this morning. Oobla doobla. Thank you for your hand in the Comrade T-Man lighter. Appreciate all of you fellas. You're off work today, huh? Well, that's good. That's better than usual. I saw that, I think it was last night, that ZF77 did a live stream. I wasn't able to join. Were you there for that? Was there anything special going on or just hanging out? Talking about Zippos? Hopefully he wasn't still mad about FedEx like he was last week. I missed that one too. I just saw that on the... Oh, it seems like he posted a poll and maybe short. Yeah, bow hunting's really popular around here too, Professor. My hands are such that by the time that I got into hunting as an adult, carpal tunnel had already riddled my hands. But I've done plenty of bow hunting with a crossbow. Can't say that I've had much success. I've had most of my hunting success. Killed plenty of deer with a rifle. Hunted when I was younger with the 30-30, and then over the last, I haven't hunted now in probably 4 or 5 years. But the rifle that I've used most recently was 270, and I love that rifle. Hello, Azrael. Happy for you to join us from Indonesia today. Hope that you are doing well. Ole Arp Henningsen, glad that you have joined us. From Denmark. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't recognize all those names. Les Stroud, that sounds familiar. Yeah, I really enjoyed when I was hunting a lot. I enjoyed watching the outdoor TV a lot. Trying to remember. Buck Commander is a pretty good one. Jim Shockey, he's got a show called Uncharted. That's a really good show. I haven't watched it in years now. I'm not even sure if it's still on, but that was a tremendous show. That guy he'll go anywhere in the world. Hunt some really cool animals, see some really cool places, and it's one thing about the state of Oklahoma. We've got some varied geography here. We've got the southeastern part of the state, which is mountainous and wooded. Well, the eastern part of the state, period, but especially the southeastern. And that's where I grew up hunting. But then over the last 10 years or so, most of the hunting that I did was in the southwestern part of the state, which is farm country. Big open fields, sitting up in a tree, and that's one reason why the change from a 30-30 to a 270. You have very seldom in the southeastern part of the state do you ever get a shot over 50 yards, where the southwestern part of the state, you can see deer at times that there's no way I'm ever going to take a shot because they're just too far. So definitely advantageous to have a rifle that'll reach out there. Okay, maybe that's why that sounds familiar. I don't know that I've ever actually watched that show, but I've seen it advertised on some of those channels I used to watch. Survivor Man. Okay, yeah, I'll have to check that out on YouTube. While you guys are here, especially Mark and Ole Henningsen, look back up and see make sure I'm not missing anybody. Boo Rock Beer. I know that all of you guys and the rest of you, if you haven't, should get over to the dependableflame.com Facebook group. That group has been growing at a tremendous clip here lately. Within the next week, it may catch up with the dependableflame.com Facebook page, which the group is really better. I send my links to both. I post links to the YouTube videos. Leave a notification when we're going to do a live stream. I post links to all the articles that we publish on both of them. But the really cool thing about the group the really cool thing about the group is that it's just like any other group, and it's not a private group. You can share posts from that group to other groups. I've been sharing posts from other groups that allow sharing over to that group from time to time. And but the thing that I would really like to promote on that dependableflame.com Facebook group is if you have lighters that, you know, maybe they're just sitting around, you don't really use them, you don't really know what you want to do with them, don't know what they're worth, or want to go through the trouble of listing them on eBay or whatever. Well, post them over there and let people know you have them and that you want to trade them and what you want to trade for. I've done at least 2 trades over there. I traded with our friend Friedrich Deal I traded away a brand new Cygnus, the only brand new Cygnus that I had that was in the box, for the Scrimshaw Slim Whaler. I think it was 1979 that Dylan bought from me a month or 2 later. And I also traded with David Ward, who's been one of our big supporters over there in the Facebook group and page from the beginning. I traded him, it was a Cygnus and I think another aluminum block collider. I can't remember exactly. But he traded, I know there was a Cygnus involved, and then he traded an old aluminum block lighter he had and a Waldorf lighter, which I had discovered, I'd come across a Waldorf lighter at some point, and not like in person, just in a listing. So I was kind of keen to acquire one and use it and show it off. So if I've got a lighter that I can trade away for a lighter that I haven't had before, then I'm going to do that just about every time. Where do you watch those shows at, Professor? Or are those the Les Stroud shows you're talking about that are on YouTube? Or, I'm sorry, that Mark was talking about. Last of the Giants, Wild Fish, and River Monsters. Those on Discovery or something? Naphtha says he has a hunting grade wrist rocket slingshot, but I personally wouldn't recommend it for hunting because it has tubes, not flat bands. So I just use it for knocking down soda cans. Yeah, I bought a slingshot when I moved in over on that place in Mesta Park because, you know, right here in the middle of Oklahoma City, you can't really be shooting rodents with a pellet gun like you would some of the places that I've lived. But it turns out, like I said, my wrists are so bad from the carpal tunnel, from the work that I've done I did at the U.S. Postal Service from 1992 to 2017, that I was no good with that slingshot at all. But I would be keen to see what a hunting grade slingshot looks like. Yeah, I'm ignorant of a lot of these shows y'all are talking about. I've never seen River Monster. Is that about alligators? Talking about swamp people. I never watched. Is Swamp People the one that Troy Landry was on? I'm familiar with Troy Landry, but I never actually watched the original show that he was on. I've seen him on other hunting shows. You know, all those people show up on each other's shows. They all do each other favors, let them hunt on each other here and there. And so it's kind of like returning the favor. Kind of like the vintage lighter community. Somebody does something cool for you, sends you a lighter out of the goodness of their heart. You remember it and hope that you can return the favor at some point. But I do think it's important to have hobbies like that. And, you know, especially hunting, it's, you know, it's a noble pursuit. It's not as cruel as many people would imagine. And especially if you eat meat, then somebody's going to have to kill that meat. Which is something that I've thought a lot about here lately. I've come to believe that in heaven we'll be vegetarians, just like we were in the garden. But I think we might eat eggs, because chicken doesn't have to die to lay an egg. I think we might eat cheese and drink milk, because the cow doesn't have to die for you to make milk, or to milk the cow, or to make cheese from its milk. So, yeah. It's hard for me to imagine at the moment, though, in this life here and now, living without meat, because it's definitely my main source of protein. I eat a lot of meat. Having already quit sugar and cut out, well, for a long period there, I didn't eat carbs at all. I've gotten back around to where I'll eat some healthier carbs. I'll eat some some things that are made from whole wheat, or maybe some whole wheat pasta, whole wheat bread, quinoa, but I don't eat sugar. I don't eat anything that's got added sugar. So I don't know what season all you guys are in. It's been really hot here in Oklahoma for the last, I don't remember the last time we did a stream, at least 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. And it's been practically 100 degrees that whole time since then. I don't know what the season is in Denmark, or in Indonesia, or in Turkey. I can't imagine that it's as hot in New York right now as it is in Oklahoma, but who knows? Mark says it's been New Orleans hot in Tennessee. Yeah, I don't doubt that. Starting the dry season. What exactly does that mean, Azrael? Does that relate to? Do you have a spring, summer, fall, and winter? And if so, when does the dry season fall? I can't remember the location we were talking about the other day, but somebody was telling me that maybe it was Australia, that it was like their seasons were opposite what we are here in America. But it seems like it's always the dry season in Oklahoma. Practically every summer there's a burn ban. Summer and fall, there's a burn ban reaching into the fall. Okay, so at the equator you only have 2 seasons. Bangkok hot, huh? Yeah, the 80s would be nice. We're supposed to be back down in the 80s next week, I think, and that would be nice. But yeah, I guess it's all a matter of your perspective. I'm, I've mentioned before that I just don't do as well in the winter as I used to. The cold is much colder to me now than it was when I was younger. And I am here lately been just a shade over 150 pounds. So maybe I've regained a little bit more of that insulation I had when I was younger. I have no intentions of getting back over 200 pounds again or anywhere even close to it. I'm pretty comfortable where I'm at. But yeah, it's brutal in the winter when you're not carrying a lot of insulation. But the summer is the summer's hot, and there's definitely things that you can't do when it gets too hot. I can't talk anybody into going for a walk, even if I felt like it. And then in the last couple of weeks, it's been so hot that I couldn't even talk anybody into going to the swimming pool. That seemed kind of crazy. It was too hot to go to the pool. Okay, so 70 degrees in in Denmark. That's pretty nice there, old Henningsen. I could live with that. I mean, it's summer here in America, everywhere, I guess. But like my buddy that lives up in Anacortes, Washington, they don't get 100-degree heat. I don't know that they get 90-degree heat. It's like 70s, maybe 80s. And I know there are other places like that too. I think San Diego's pretty temperate. Maybe there's places on the other coast that are a little more temperate like that too. But in Tennessee, where Mark's at, or in New Orleans, like he mentioned, or Mississippi, as J-Ro Lights has talked about before, um, anywhere in the South. I mean, I saw the other day that Austin, Texas had been 100-degree heat for like 30-something straight days. That's like Oklahoma heat wave stuff there. Worst summer we ever had, which was 2011. There was, I think it was like 65 days of 100-degree heat, and those weren't all in a row, but there were several of them that were stretched. It might have been that way for a month in a row, with a break here or there. So the last of the summer in Denmark, 70 degrees. That's kind of what I would like to. We get a fall and a winter. They seem incredibly short. Summer seems to stretch way into the fall. I said fall and winter. I meant fall and spring. The winter seems to stretch into the spring. And then the summer, gets there. It seems like sometimes you only get a week or two of spring. But this last year hadn't been too bad. And even with the 100 degrees that we've had here over the last few weeks, we've still only had like 14 or 15 days this summer of 100-degree heat, which is nowhere near. Like I said, the record's 60 some days. So I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about the heat. And I'm going to try not to complain about the cold once it gets here either. But the cold is definitely harder on me than the heat. Oh, yeah, I can imagine. That's the humidity. That's the killer around here most of the time, Mark. And I can imagine that Louisiana is about the same way. Yeah, NAF, the 115-degree heat index, they forecast that one day last week here, or maybe it was earlier this week. And we haven't hit 110. Last year we hit 110 a couple of times. But 115-degree heat index is pretty miserable. Just walk outside and it feels like you're getting hit in the face with a blast furnace. This lighter was also a little bit of a challenge. Well, it was a real challenge to fuel up without spilling it, because such a small hole, and then the wadding in there so close, there just wasn't much room for error. But it also didn't seem like it took long for it to fill up, so that was good. Obviously I'll need to fuel that up again if I'm going to use it, but I'm not going to use it in its current state because I don't know about that wick. I think that wick, there's a good chance it's got asbestos in it. I think the slider was probably from the 50s or 60s, maybe the 70s. I think this one's marked Vulcan. I think it's identical to the Penguin Smile. Any of you guys got any lighter projects you've been working on? We talked with the professor about his etching project. None of these others are fueled up except for the T-Man lighter. And I think I topped it off on Monday when I made the video. I like the depiction of the beaker bong and the marijuana leaf motif all the way around. The ZF77 logo and the brass knuckles, which were T-Man's channel logo. So I assume, Professor, was ZF77 your inspiration to give that etching process a chance? I mentioned they've got the compressor out across the street, so I apologize if we start getting hit with a bunch of noise from jackhammer or whatever tools they decide to work with here in a minute. And I'll also go ahead and let you guys know that I'm going to have to leave here in about half an hour. Get over to the place in Mesta Park, meet a couple of people who are showing up from Facebook Market, hopefully to buy some of those things. And then some other things that I'm got to get out of there as well. But I should be able to publish a little more regularly than I have been. And also, hopefully, very soon we'll be able to get more lighters in here. And it doesn't take very many lighters to suddenly have a whole handful of projects that'll keep me busy. So. Well, very cool. OR Pennington. Those are, I've never owned the Orlick Sport. I think I know what you're talking about, though. It looks, it's similar to a flip top lighter, but rather than having a lid, when I say flip top lighter, Zippo type lighter, but rather than having a lid, it's got the arm that comes up and snuffs. I think that's the Orlick Sport. And the Beatty Jets, of course, those are some of my favorite lighters of all time. I don't have any right now. Sold all the ones that I had. Even sold all the parts that I had. I don't have any Thorns right now either, Azrael. I've owned several. I've owned at least one single claw pocket lighter and then a single claw table lighter. I think I've owned a couple of double claw table lighters and then probably 3 or 4 double claw pocket lighters. I did a video on re-wicking a double claw. So that's about the, well, I also did a video on replacing the, I think I did a video on that. Surely I did. I replaced a file wheel on a double claw. So I think I published a video on that. But yeah, that's been about the extent of the maintenance or repair work that I've done on Thorns. And I've never owned like a Vedette or, oh, I'm drawing a blank on some of the other names. The Lucky, I never owned a Lucky. What's the snap action? The Oriflam? Does that sound right? But anyway, yeah, I've owned a few of the semi-automatic models, the single and double claws. Those are really cool lighters. Definitely some of my favorite. It's hard, man. It's really hard to say, oh, I've got this favorite. You guys know how I feel about Cygnus lighters, and they're definitely my favorite. And really, because of how inexpensively I've been able to accumulate most of those, is the reason that I've decided to collect them. But I love the Cygnus, but I love the Beatties. The fact that you got a petrol fueled lighter that, has a stand-up flame to light cigarettes, but then when you tilt it, that jet will produce that hissing flame that you can suck down into your pipe. It's a really cool tool to have. Hello, Shaggy Rifleman. Glad that you have joined us today. Glad to visit with you again. Mark says that he is refurbishing his old users that he hadn't messed with in a few years. What do you mean by a link? Are you talking about a link to buy new springs? Like uncut? What exactly is your question there, Mark? I don't have a link to anything like that, and I've thought about that because I've seen, basically, what's the word? Aftermarket type. You can see on eBay that they sell replacement that they claim will fit a Zippo. And of course, you could use that and cut them down maybe for other lighters as well. Occasionally, you may run into one that needs a longer one. But what I've done is just accumulated springs out of old lighters, and so when I need a spring, then I'll just go and find one that can either be cut down or maybe is about the same length. So no, I don't have a link, but like I said, that is something that I have thought about. I've wondered about some of those parts. I've seen other people who... for longer. Yeah, no, I haven't, but I will. I'll keep my eyes open. Those are that's one reason why I definitely, when I come across longer flint springs, that I keep them, is because some lighters need a really long spring, much longer than a Zippo. Yeah, there seem to be old Old ARP Henningsen. There seem to be a good number of those still around, and as opposed, well, I guess there's plenty of Zippos that you find still available in boxes. But you can pretty readily find a Beatty jet that'll come with the box and the paperwork and the probe still in the envelope. And I think one of the reasons for that is because back in the day, there was such a surplus of them. I read somewhere here over the last year or two that they were still selling those into the 80s. Not that they were marketing them or anything like that, but that I don't know if the company was still in business or if it was just whoever had control of the company when it went out of business, that they were still selling new old stock of Beatty jet lighters into the 1980s. And I don't think they were made past about 1960 or so. I could be wrong. That's all off the top of my head. Cool. So Shaggy, you and the professor are neighbors then. He lives in Montana there right above you. I've never been to Montana, but I have been through Wyoming. Was that a chrome Beatty jet or nickel plated, leather wrapped? There's some that have advertising on them. A little bit more scarce, not as common as the others. But yeah, I had a leather wrapped table model several years ago. I probably had a dozen or so, maybe even more than that. I've had at least a dozen or so Beatty jets that I've bought and sold over the last 5 years. Chrome, yeah. Yeah, the Beatty jets, man, they're definitely some of my favorites. And yeah, I love those lighters. Always look, when I'm looking at a group of lighters to buy, if there's a Beatty jet, that's always a plus. I need to acquire a new one myself, or another one that would come with the box and all that, because I broke the probe that I had. You'd have to be careful with them. That little wire is a little bit fragile, and it'll get bent over time. And you bend it enough times, and it'll just break off. That was one of the reasons that I went ahead and sold all the parts that I had. Is I felt like I was going to have to acquire some more before I could really. It's hard to, unless you just get lucky, or you're just fortunate and blessed that the jet tube is not obstructed. But there's all kinds of opportunity for soot to get in there, and it doesn't take much. But out of all the Beatty jets that I've had, I've only had one or two that I never could get to work quite right, and both of them had evidence that one of them you could clearly see the hole in the jet tube, and if it's in good order, you're going to have a hard time seeing that hole, let alone just be able to look at it and see it with your naked eye. And that's how you end up bending that probe, is because you're dragging that probe across the face of that tube to give it an opportunity to slide into a hole that you can't really see. Yeah, I would say that to buy one in a box with the paperwork and everything, and for the lighter itself, if it's in near mint condition, I think you're probably going to pay close to $100 for that. But in a box in any kind of good condition with all the paperwork and probe and all that, you're going to have a hard time finding one for less than $60, $65. And I haven't been keeping an eye on them like I used to. That's one of the I used to really keep, at one point I bid on every Beatty jet that, um, there wasn't one on eBay that was going to sell for less than $40 because I was going to pay that for it. But that's been a long time ago now. Few years anyway. Anybody had any repair problems or projects here lately that they couldn't solve? I'm looking forward to getting some projects going where I can use these wicks that I just discovered I had a couple of days ago. Sent to me by the eBay seller david2052. If you look, these, this looks about the same. The 2.25, that looks about the same as most of the wicks that I have dealt with. So these others are, I think, considerably smaller. And I personally had never encountered a lighter that I couldn't coax a Zippo wick into, or IMCO wire lead wick, or a new old stock Ronson wick. But we'll see. I'm looking forward to employing some of those wicks and lighters as I have projects come up here in the near future. Yeah, that fella had contacted me probably around a year ago, and I had gotten a hold of him asking him about the kind of wicks that he had available, because I was trying to determine, I was wanting to put a link on my website. And after talking to him, I did that. And I didn't realize that he had sent me these as a thank you, but I'm certainly grateful, and we'll put those to use, and we'll be glad to recommend those to others. It's obviously a little bit better quality than a lot of what is out there, and especially when you can get it in the varying diameters. And I'm kind of curious, I mentioned in that video the other day, when I'm fairly certain that this is an new old stock Ronson wick that's in this one. And when I installed it into it, it just slid right into it without me even needing to tie a wire on it or anything. So I may re-wick this one just for fun. At times I've thought this was a really dependable lighter, and at other times I've had questions. It's just got a regular cheap flint in it right now, and still seems to spark really well. With the Dunhill blue flint in it, it was practically flawless, but I haven't really used it since I put a regular cheap flint back in it, or at least not to any great degree. And to be honest, I haven't been smoking that much here lately anyway. So I haven't been using any of them quite as much as not even my trusty old Yellow Flame butane insert. Haven't been using it quite as much, so it doesn't need to be refueled near as much. What kind of lighters do you mean, Azrael, that China is still producing? You say probably cheap copy of micro brand products. I know that those IMCO wire lead wicks, those come from China now. Okay, got you. I know that, I think they're still making IMCO lighters too in China and have been now for, I guess they've been making those IMCOs in Austria up until 10 years or so ago, maybe longer. Okay. Yeah, I've seen that titanium lighter listed on eBay. Yeah, getting back to your question about springs, though, Mark, I don't remember even seeing, longer spring stock that you could just buy and cut. I did watch, I never got back to watching that. I can't remember now who had sent that link. Somebody had posted a link of a guy that was trying to build his own Zippo lighter, and I did watch him build his own spring, which was interesting. It didn't look like it was quite uniform like you would expect because most of these are made by machine, where he made that one by hand. And I don't know if it had the same quality spring tension as you would expect, but it doesn't require a whole lot for you to get the pressure you need to force that, what do you call it, that flint up against the file wheel. But yeah, this guy is a young guy too. Seems like he had a foreign accent. But he was, hand making his own Zippo. And that very first episode, I think it was a 3-part deal. He basically built the insert. I don't think he had built the case at all. I think he started with the insert. I need to get back over and look at that. That was a really interesting project. Way more involved than anything I've ever done. Most of what I do is more along the lines of maintenance or troubleshooting than actual repair. But if you got a flint that is degraded into a tube, you got to get it out of there somehow. So maybe that's a step beyond just normal maintenance. But I look forward to acquiring more lighters, and always look forward to gaining experience with mechanisms that I haven't encountered before. It's always fun. It's always interesting. I've ruined a lighter or two. It happens. But I've had a lot of fun along the way too. And most of the time when I've ruined a lighter, it's not been a lighter that, fortunately, I've bought and sold some lighters that ended up selling for a large amount of money, several $100s. So I've never owned anything that was solid gold or anything like that. I've owned several solid or sterling silver. And, the lighter that I sold for the most money was the Town & Country Zippo Geese from 1949 or 1950. But just below that have been several sterling silver Dunhills. I think I've had 4 or 5 sterling silver Dunhills. I've had at least 2 sterling silver Zippos. One that sold in the $400 or $500 range. That one was from the late 40s. Had another one that I think was from the late 50s or early 60s. But like I said, fortunately, I've never done anything with an expensive lighter to run it. But the good thing was I didn't pay a ton for it. Even that lighter that I sold for $789, the Town and Country Zippo, it was bought in a group of, I think it was 6 lighters for a total of about $200. And trying to think, I might have made my money back on that one out of the other lighters, even not even considering the Town and Country Geese. But, maybe that's to running a lighter that doesn't have as much value and that you didn't really pay anything for. Maybe that's why that happens sometimes. Perhaps I was not as careful with a cheaper lighter as I have been with a more expensive one. Okay, Mark says his old MCO is riveted at the file wheel. Can I just carb cleaner the striker assembly out? You saying to clean it out? I have, you got to be careful with some of those. That's the bad thing about the MCO and a lot of the other squeeze lighters is that they're riveted together. And I think it was an MCO. I can't remember. There was one that I just dipped off in to the 30% concentrated vinegar overnight. And I didn't have any ill effects from it. But in hindsight, you would want to be careful. I don't know about carb cleaner. I don't know if the carb cleaner, you might be a lot safer cleaning it with that. I've never tried that for lighters. I've used plenty of carburetor cleaner when I was younger. My dad always had a little, the little soap bucket that had the little tray that you lowered the parts down in. My old man was a shade tree mechanic, did work for other people, and rebuilt carburetors all the time. But I don't think that's as caustic as the concentrated vinegar. But some of that metal, I know the concentrated vinegar, some of the like more pot metal type stuff, it'll completely disintegrate that. It'll eat right through it. But yes, I would think that you could probably just soak it, then rinse it really well. Because with the MCOs, for one, you should I'm trying to remember, do all the MCOs, you can pull the bottom out, you can pull basically the wick assembly out of them, right? So at least you don't have to worry about contaminating your wadding or your wick or anything like that. That's what gets difficult with like some of the Ronson type lighters. If you've got a fill screw, which these newer ones don't even have a fill screw. They just twisted to open them. But like if you got a stuck fill screw and you soak it in vinegar or mineral spirits or whatever to try to loosen it, well, it's probably, if it does penetrate the fill screw, then it's probably going to end up in the wadding. So you'd have to replace that. So when you say the insert, you're talking about basically the wick wand that you can pull out of it? Or am I confusing that with another squeeze type lighter? Well, actually the MCO, like the 60, is it the 6800? That's not even a squeeze lighter, is it? That's more along the lines of like the Dunhill service lighter. Like the action is in the opening. Is that right? Well, I appreciate you all joining me today. And like I said, I would appreciate you going over, and if you haven't already, joining the dependableflame.com Facebook group. Yeah, like a candle part. Yep, exactly. Yeah, the part that makes it like a pipe lighter. Very versatile lighters. But yeah, like I said, I may be confusing some of those mechanisms, some of those other Austrian mechanisms with the IMCO. Like I said, I think the IMCO that you're talking about, it has more of a, it's more of the thumb action than it is the squeeze. You open the lid and it strikes. As I mentioned too, though, if you have anything that you want to trade, post pictures of it over there on the dependableflame.com Facebook group and let everybody know what you might be interested in trading for. Or if you just got something you want to trade for, then find pictures or just post explaining what you're looking for and let us know what you might have to trade for it. If you got extra Zippos, duplicates, some that have ended up in your collection but don't really belong. And like I said, keep your eyes peeled. Hopefully there will be more consistent output on a daily basis of the videos that we publish on the YouTube channel. And hopefully too, as we get into the fall here, we'll have a set day. We'll have a specific day that we conduct these live streams, probably back on Tuesday again. But I appreciate you guys joining me on this Friday. I'm glad that our friend Thwan Nguyen was here for a short moment anyway. Boo Rock Beer, Mark Burris, Naphtha, the Professor, Dylan DePie, Azrael, Old Arp Henningsen, and hopefully Shaggy Rifleman was with us again. He's been with us before. I don't think we had anybody new this week, but I appreciate all of you being here. And like I said, hopefully as we can get back to more of a regular schedule and posting videos on a regular basis and writing articles for the website and all that kind of stuff, then some of the regulars that we've had before will join us again, and we can continue our shared interest and camaraderie around these interesting, well, maybe a bit elementary functioning Petrol lighters. But we will see you guys soon. Until next time.